HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our
Doing the right
clients.
thing, it just came up just
Built
because
as
you
a
know the live
comprehensive
came up on my
compliance, Sequence
YouTube,
XT combines
phone
people,
thing. So I just wanted,
technology,
you know.
and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, compliance, and business continuity. HB Next. HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. Built as a comprehensive solution, Sequence XT combines people, technology, and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next.
Dive bombing and eating fish.
HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. Built as a comprehensive solution, Sequence XT combines people, technology, and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next. HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. Built as a comprehensive solution, Sequence XT combines people, technology, and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next. HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. Built as a comprehensive solution, Sequence XT combines people, technology, and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next. HB Next is the pioneer of compliance as a service, consolidating how industrial companies manage risk and compliance within their organizations, protecting more than 1 million lives, servicing over 5,000 clients, and bringing over 500 years of safety and business continuity domain expertise for our clients. Built as a comprehensive solution, Sequence XT combines people, technology, and processes to create a robust firewall of protection for owners and stakeholders in an easy-to-use platform. Sequence XT and HB Next is your trusted partner in compliance, risk management, safety, and business continuity. HB Next.
All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. We wanted to provide a quick overview of HP Next so you know who we are, the industries that we cover, and provide a backdrop to our expertise in construction, environmental, stormwater, due diligence, and of course the topic of today, transportation, fleet, and DOT. Welcome to the second episode of the Drive Transportation Podcast. We're going to delve into topics that matter in the lives of professional transportation, DOT, and fleet. Please add your questions in the chat, and we will answer them in the Q&A session at the end. And to your host, to Kevin Colton.
All right. Thanks, Garrett.
Kevin, go ahead and take it off for us today. Thank you.
Got it. Thanks, Garrett. Welcome, everyone. I'm Kevin Colton, the host of The Drive. Hey, this episode, we're going to be talking about mastering the safety and building a secure foundation for your fleet. So, four of the subjects that we're going to be concentrating on today is hiring the right candidate, your drivers and their first 90 days of successful onboarding, then training, setting your drivers up for continuing education, and then really positive reinforcement after a employee or driver has an accident or roadside inspection. We want to keep those drivers and retain them. So one of the things I wanted to remind everybody, this episode is Operation Safe Driver Week is currently underway, which kicked off July 7th and will be going clear till July 13th. Law enforcement is concentrating on the commercial vehicle fleets, on driver behavior, following too close, you're speeding, cell phone, and obviously there's still big concentration this summer on drugs and alcohol. Recently, they are really doing a big crackdown on the clearinghouse. So remind all your drivers to put up the cell phone, wear the seatbelts, observe the all your rules of the road, and everybody come home safe. So let's get into this. So hiring the right candidates, it's a big step in every company, and it cost us a lot of money with HR and recruiting and everything. And in recent years, we know that there's kind of been that talk about a shortage of CDL drivers and definitely really good qualified CDL drivers. Pre-COVID, there was a shortage, and then when COVID hit, that really kicked in. We're kind of in that post-COVID episode now, and we're seeing it kind of stable out across the industry. But if you're a specialized carrier, let's say you're in the construction field that we deal with a lot here at HB Next, you have those specialized CDL drivers that are driving the low boys and heavy equipment and oversized loads. So where do we look for those drivers? Where can we hire them? Where do we go? Where's our sources for that? So let's talk about finding that driver and getting that right driver that's going to be that culture and the fit for our company. So a lot of times our recruiting and where we find them is recruiting boards that are out there. You may look on LinkedIn and Hire Right and different publications like that. But sometimes the word of mouth is some of your best employees you're going to get. If you have drivers and employees and they've been with your company for an extended period of time, they're a good driver, and they say, hey, I got a friend that's looking for a job. They really, really are the key to bringing them in. One of the other thing is look at your local job fairs that are out there. You can join some of those job fairs at your local community college, check with your local cities and your county government, and a lot of times they will host those job fairs. Possibly a partnering up with a truck driving school. We're seeing more and more of those type of schools pop up, but I would advise you to make sure you do your research on those companies that have that type of entry level driving program. I know here in the Metro Atlanta, there's a local community college that offers a 3-week kind of work at your own pace online driving, and it sets new CDL drivers up for success to obtain their CDL. That may be something that you can look at. But there's a lot of different sources out there. Here at HB Next, we also help with assistance and trying to help companies find those right drivers and what is involved in that. So let's understand the process really of hiring a successful driver. So it's not as easy as it was 20 years ago where driver came in, they had a CDL, you ran a MVR on them and they passed probably the drug test and we put them in the truck. There's a lot of federal and state regulations that we do have now. So understanding that process of hiring, that first 30 days, there's a lot of things that we need to do as a company, whether you're running HR or the safety department. So, does the driver have a CDL or not? How long has he had that CDL? And make sure if you're operating under a DOT number that you have all the correct paperwork that FMCSA on the federal side is requiring. So you have the correct application. Remember, you must be able to have the driver verify his last 3 year or correction, his last 10 years of employment. But as a company, you must verify the last 3 years of where he actually worked. Obviously, we're going to verify on an MVR for the last 3 years his CDL, his driver's license. You need to check his medical card. And here was a big one that came up January of this year is verifying the medical examiner on the National Registry. How do you do that? You go into the National Registry and verify that doctor. All right. I would suggest that you run a PSP, a personal safety performance background on the driver. You're going to get a 7 year history on their accidents and all roadside inspections. Where does that come in handy is because a driver could be stopped roadside, had an inspection, violations noted, but not issued a long copy ticket. That will not show up on their MVR. So those PSPs are really a good thing for a company to use. You can sign up for that or you can reach out to a third party. HB Next, I'll run the MVR, I'll run a PSP, we run the National Registry. So we take a lot of that behind the scenes, that extra workout for you as a HR or safety manager within your company so you can do your day-to-day job. The next thing is putting all these items together and really creating a DQ file. That DQ file simply stands for driver qualification. All right. Your last 7 days, we get them into the driver's seat. Make sure they understand the type of equipment they're operating. Just because they have a CDL, they may have never operated a dump truck or a lowboy. So make sure you have that experienced person within your fleet that can go out and help those drivers really understand. There's been many times when I was on the road in law enforcement, I would stop a driver because he had his clearance lights on, but he didn't have his headlights. I would stop the driver and say, "Hey, the reason I'm stopping you is you have no headlights on." "Oh, I didn't know where the switch was." So help educate them the right way. All right. And then finally, make sure that your new employee signs off on all company policies and procedures and understands that. So, in closing, we need to find that successful candidate, get them ready to bring them on board, and have your safety and HR team ready with all the necessary paperwork. Make sure your team understands the procedures and the steps before the driver can actually be put in. We have to have the drug test back, our clearinghouse back, CDL back. Make sure you know everything. If not, reach out to that third party source that can really help you. And here's something that all of us should remember in the management team is always be positive when we're bringing a driver in. It may be where he's not really sure of, he doesn't really know anybody, he doesn't know what to expect. But with you being positive and helping him in this procedure is going to relax him and be a lot more comfortable. All right. So let's talk about your drivers in the first 90 days of successful onboarding. We did that initial hiring. We've made that decision. We're putting them in that driver's seat. So what we found or what we believe that we have found that right candidate, we have to complete everything. Now we want to get them in the truck. Make sure that they're comfortable with operating that equipment, make sure they know how to conduct the proper pre-trips and everything that is involved in that. So let's talk about setting them up for success. Now, some of your drivers may be new CDL holders. Some of them may have experience in coming from other companies, and they may simply say, oh, I've operated this before. Make sure they demonstrate that. Just don't always take your word for it. All right. So if you assign them equipment, make sure a member of your staff goes over the vehicle with them and answers any questions they may have. Something that's important is also to make sure that you know any previous damage or dings or scrapes on your vehicle that you may have before the driver is assigned that. We don't want to falsely accuse anybody of causing damage to their vehicle. So document if anything was there, make sure the driver signs off on it, you sign off on it, and we can make sure that's noted with our maintenance team. Next, we should have conducted a road test using the proper form. The form is the same form, it's the same road test that we're going to conduct with every new employee. That shows that we're impartial. You mark out the road, you mark out how many miles that was, and you make the notes, both a little bit of positive and a little bit of typically on road tests, I'll tell a driver, hey, you did a great job, but continue to study your federal and state regulations. Stay up to speed with them. One of the ones I like to ask drivers are, what is your front tire tread supposed to be? What is the thickness of your brakes supposed to be? How big can a crack in your windshield be? And that's really just educating them and showing them that also you as a company and management also know those things. So after that, we make sure they understand where all their paperwork is located in the vehicle. Many times I would stop a commercial driver out on the roadside to conduct an inspection, and I would ask him for his insurance card or his IRP card or any of his required paperwork. And he's doing that pat down on the visor and in the door in the back. And he clearly just did not know where that driver's folder was located at. So make sure you go over that. Make sure all of his documentation is up to date and is current. So, do you have telematics in your vehicle or a camera system? Make sure the driver understands what your policy is, but also how telematics in the camera system actually works. Explain to him what triggering events are. Let him know if you follow too close, the camera's going to pick that up. If you go over a certain threshold on your speeding or rapid acceleration or harsh braking or cornering, a lot of those things are going to trigger the event. Tell them, look, we understand that there's busy traffic out there. People may cut you off. Probably about 90% of the recorded videos and that, typically when I review them, there's not a lot to it. It's a little bit of driver error or it's just the general traffic that is out there. If the driver needs to be, a one-on-one discussion with, then that's when we have it. But make sure they understand that. And the biggest misconception on telematics and camera systems is, hey, Big Brother's not sitting back at the office and me watching you on the camera waiting for you to screw up. That's just not what companies do. All right. So, all right. Now, how many of us, and this is always something that I push to companies that I work with, is following up with our new driver that first 90 days, following up with them 7, 14, or 30 days into their employment. And what do I mean by that? A lot of us will hire somebody and then we don't see them for another couple weeks or a month or two, but make that extra, effort to walk out and say hi to that driver and ask him if everything's going okay when you see him in the yard that evening, or maybe come in a few minutes early and catch them in the morning and say, hey, how's everything going? Is there anything that we discussed about in policies and procedures that you're not seeing out there on the roadway? But show to them, again, that you care. That makes them feel like they're wanted, they're special. Okay? So now let's following up on the driver and their vehicle to make sure they're conducting their proper paperwork. That means, are they conducting their pre-trip? Are they keeping their truck clean and in a professional manner? Remember, our company's name's on the side of that vehicle. That's a big rolling billboard. And how do we do this? You can really do it a number of different ways. And I've worked with different companies on this in the past. But something as little as your driver comes in that evening, he parks his truck, his dump truck, his delivery truck, and you see he leaves for the day. Go out there and conduct your own pre-trip on it and see if there's any obvious violations that should have been noted. Go back, look at the driver's paperwork, and see if he's made those notations. If he hasn't, go ahead and you can put a little note or something in his truck. I like to always pop the hood. I like to put a little drive out tag or a little wired tag, and I'll put it right on their oil dipstick. And I'll put my name on it, Kevin Colton, see me, and I'll put the date on it. What am I looking for? I'm looking to see if that driver's going to conduct the right pre-trip when he comes in tomorrow morning. He pops the hood, he checks his fluids, he sees that little card, and he goes, geez, what's this about? And he comes into the office and goes, Kevin, I was doing my pre-trip this morning and I found this little tag on my oil dipstick. And I just want to tell him, yes, thank you for doing a good job in conducting a thorough pre-trip. Sometimes that goes a long ways with your drivers. And in some cases, I've developed safety programs with other companies, and we do that to all of our drivers. Occasional spot check them, and a driver will come in and say, here, Kevin, I was told to come in and see you. And I give them a $5 or $10 gift card to Chick-fil-A, just showing our appreciation. Drivers love to talk. That driver that you gave that little gift card for Chick-fil-A or something, he goes back, he talks to the rest of the fleet, and those guys do what now? They start looking on the rest of their vehicle because I want that little gift card or I want that recognition. So drivers will respect their supervisors a lot more if they have that kind of interaction with them. Okay, so you can do those little safety incentives with new drivers along with the entire fleet, looking at their vehicle, really showing them that you just don't manage from inside and behind your desk, that you interact with their and you really care about them. And this is really important with those drivers that are new, that first 90 days. Okay, now let's talk about training and setting your drivers up with continuing education in their field. So we brought the driver on. Everything seems to be going really good. They've made it past that first 90 days. There's a lot of people in the industry that say we really don't start making money on our driver, a new driver, until we hit that 60, 90-day mark. Once we got that, we can really say, hey, that driver doesn't have to be trained anymore. He knows what he's doing. He comes in, he's making the company money. It depends on the type of operation that you are conducting, but over road carriers and short haul carriers all vary a little bit from 30 to 90 days. So he's making us money, he's doing good, he's out there. Now we want to continue that success with them by training him, giving him that education and helping him in his field. So this is one of the biggest things that I see with a company in their fleet is a lack of good quality training that they provide to drivers. Why? Because as companies, we really feel it's costing me too much money. I can't do a stoppage. So a lot of companies, they feel that they don't have the time to do that. But if we bring a drivers in for a meeting either late afternoon or even possibly on a Saturday morning, I do that with a lot of companies. We have an hour and a half. We bring Chick-fil-A or we bring breakfast into them, and we keep the meetings about an hour and a half. But think about the subject matter that we're giving them. I always tend to say I always want to have drivers get some sort of defensive driving at least once a year. Some of the other subjects is how to handle an accident. It's a very scary situation that most people aren't used to. They're involved in an accident, the adrenaline's going, they're nervous, they're hoping they weren't at fault. There may be people that are injured that make them even more nervous. So we hold classes to tell a driver what to expect in case they've been involved in an accident. We tell them what to expect and how to handle it if, unfortunately, they possibly were at fault in that. Just yesterday, I've had 2 accidents. I'm working for several different companies. One of them, had a side swipe. Another one, a driver who just got in a hurry and he was on a side street and he stopped and he put his truck in reverse and backed up onto a lady. No injuries, but we want them to understand what is going to be done. The next one is always go over. This is another one. I rank it right up there with the defensive driving is how to conduct that proper pre and post trip inspection on their vehicle. I talk to them about what the current trends are. And what I like to do is I like to pull an SMS report on the company before I hold a training class. I look at what that company has been getting hit for in roadside inspections, and I like to concentrate on those items as a whole. Make sure whoever your instructor is, look at their background, their qualifications, how long that they have been out there. And, that goes a long ways with your drivers because your drivers will tend to listen to those people they feel really know what they're doing. The next one is how to handle being pulled over by law enforcement and a level 1, 2, or 3 are conducted on their truck. Make sure they understand what the officer or the trooper's looking at, what the paperwork's going to be like, how that's going to work in the event we do have a violation. Like I talked about in our last episode, there's possibly a chance where we could data queue a violation and get that overturned for not only the company, but the driver also. Next one is, what to do in the event of a breakdown. Make sure a driver is clear. What does he do with his vehicle? Where does he place his triangles? Because at the end of the day, we don't want to have an accident out there occur, and we want them to be safe along with your equipment. In some of the basic classes, and we do this a lot here at HB Next with a lot of our construction companies because they may be a low boy CDL holder, but then they're operating the bulldozer, the excavator, the heavy equipment when it gets out there, is make sure you have members of your staff and drivers that they've been given first aid, CPR, and AED training. And then the last one, I would say, depending on your fleet and your operation, is cargo securement. I used to concentrate a lot on cargo securement, especially on flatbeds. Drivers just would not have the right amount of straps or proper securement on their vehicles. So try to conduct training of some sort at least every quarter, if not once, at least once every 6 months, so we can get that in. Make sure that the class is documented. Make sure the instructor is documented who gave that class. And make sure every driver that attended that class has some sort of documentation that shows that he attended it. Place that into his DQ file. Depending on the class, you may even like the first aid CPR, they get a little card, a certificate, and it's good for 2 years or whatever that is. So now that we have had the experts and the people operating and that knowledge come in and give good quality class to our fleet, we have documents in everybody's DQ files and have back the company policies and procedures with the entire training. We as a company have shown that we care about keeping our vehicles and drivers safe and traveling on the roadway. Where that really comes in, and this will come up in some future episodes that we're going to have here on the drive, is with some insurance industry leaders will be with me and guest speakers with me, and we're going to be talking about how the insurance industry and attorneys look at a company, how your onboarding has been going, what type of training you offered, and what they try to do. They kind of paint this picture that if you have no training, no true onboarding program, they're kind of making it look like the company really doesn't care that much. So if you put all these things in place that I recommend, that we're setting our drivers up for success in our overall company, that we care about them. We care about our company, we care about our maintenance team, we care about management, and we care about our drivers. So definitely stay tuned for those insurance episodes that we're going to be having coming up here in the future, along with the telematics. All right, so let's get into positive reinforcement, or what do we do when a driver is involved in an accident or a roadside inspection? We don't want to be fast and real quick to judgment to say, our driver screwed up, he's fired, you ruined my truck, you got a ticket, or you got pulled over and you got a lot of violations on this. Let's think about the overall. Did we set that driver up for success before they actually got pulled over and a bunch of those violations were discovered? Can we say that, look, Joe, I talked to you about conducting the proper pre-trips and post-trips. We gave you classes about how to handle whenever you're pulled over by law enforcement and a roadside DOT inspection is conducted, and ask him, what happened? Where did we fail you at? You know, and see if the driver would see what his response is. We really want to help them, and it's cheaper for us to keep those drivers on the long end versus getting rid of him quickly and simply replacing him with another driver and starting all over. So we may or may not have been at fault. We may or may not have received the violation, but we can always take something out of it and learn something. So make sure you have a written policy in place, and make sure a driver learns that, especially on those first 90 days, on what he needs to do in the event of an accident. The inspection occurs. Who does the driver notify? Who's the first person he's supposed to call? Is it HR? Is it a safety manager? How much time do they have to report an accident? I find some companies' policies state, you must report it within the next day, or they'll have wording, it'll say as soon as possible. Be specific in your policy. If you haven't had a review of your driver, your safety, your employee policy in the last year, you owe it to yourself to go over the driver policy, the safety policy, your employee policy, and make sure that it's meeting all the requirements that insurance also has out there. So we had an accident. Your driver may need and is required to do drug and alcohol testing. Make sure you document, hey, did a member of management take that driver over to the facility to have the drug and alcohol test done? Remember, was there a fatality? Were we ticketed? Was anybody transported from the scene? And did we have any vehicles that were actually towed away from the scene? Make sure you understand what federal regulations require if it was a CDL holder. Make sure we know what the policy is under the company, and make sure you also know what your state law requirements are. Did we start an insurance package or a accident package that the insurance is going to need? Because the insurance is going to require a lot of things. It's going to come at us fast. And then all of a sudden, about 2 to 3 months later, insurance calls you up and says, hey, the opposing party is suing us for damages, and now they're wanting a bunch of information, and we're struggling trying to find out where all that information is. So start a good file with your system, with HR, whoever is that main person of contact, that we will be able to provide all that information. Remember, we're going to need the driver's files, your maintenance records. You should also preserve any dash cam or telematics history you may have that was going to be on that vehicle. Company driver safety procedures and training, pictures of everything that was involved. There's a lot of stuff on there. Recently, I have learned that insurance and some accident attorneys are actually in some serious accidents going back and requesting emails and phone records of all parties involved. If you're a driver this is something that in some cases attorneys are being able to get this by a court order, and they're getting your phone records, text messages. So be mindful of what you say and everything. Okay. All right. Let's talk about a roadside inspection. Our driver received a roadside inspection. Maybe he got a couple violations in it. Let's look at the violations. Let's talk to the driver. It's always good to document those violations. And you can do this by something as simple as taking a picture, the driver can, with his cell phone. We want to make sure that the violation that was noted on the inspection report, it actually meets what the code section is reading. So, we need to know, when can we return that vehicle back into service? If you're a short haul provider, your driver received an inspection today with some violations, he comes back home tonight, those violations need to be corrected before the next dispatch. All right. After we have corrected everything, we need to make sure the proper management signs off on the DOT inspection that's sent back into state within the required amount of time. If the mechanic did it, or the mechanic did all the work and he passed it off to the safety management team and said, hey, everything's complete, make sure we walk around the truck, make sure everything is completely corrected. And then we sign off and date it and get that sent back into the state. Did we review the inspection report, and did we find any errors? If there are any errors, make sure you understand how to conduct a data queue on those violations. That's something that my team here at HB Next, we will help you with any of those questions that you have in doing that, because you kind of have to be politically correct to tell the state they kind of made a mistake when they conducted that inspection on your driver. Okay, you can't just say, well, he documented it the wrong way. There's a little bit of a process to that. So make sure that the driver and all parties involved understand and knows what happened, and make sure we move forward and we don't have that type of violation come up again if a driver gets pulled over. And also note that that may be something that we talk about at our next driver safety meeting. Do we need to relook at policies or anything that we have in place? Did something not really cover it? We don't want to do a knee-jerk reaction and say, oh, we need to change this in policy, but make a note of it and have that as a discussion on the management board. So we handled the incident and we followed what needed to happen. Now we have a day or two and we start to do our follow-up. We want to learn, and we want the driver to learn from that. Is it something that he just blatantly messed up, or was it something that legitimately he just made a mistake? Did he truly understand from the mistake that he learned on that? So how do we handle this? Of course, may come by insurance and any possibilities from other parties involved if it was an accident, and can we minimize the damages occurred from this if we have a potential lawsuit. A lot of insurance companies now are really wanting to try to settle a case as fast as they can. Okay? So, we've kind of talked about a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. We had 4 sections that we talked about today. Each one of these, I'm hoping everybody got a little something out, whether it's about how we do our onboarding process, who's responsible for that, how do we conduct training, how do we set our drivers up for success, what do we do in the event of an accident or a roadside inspection that possibly we were at fault, or we had some contributing factors on that. And be prepared in a case if something like this evolves. So, again, reach out to those people that can really help you and truly understand the federal and the state regulations. That's what my team specializes in. We have over 55 years of experience with everything in there. There's a lot about that. Again, I am excited about this podcast, and thanks for listening. I do want to field a few questions from some of our listeners, And for that, I'm going to pass that over to our producer, Garrett, will help us field some of those questions. Garrett, what do you got for me?
Hey everybody! Thank you for so much for listening to our episode of The Drive. We do have some pre-submitted questions, as well as the chat. The chat is live, so if you have any questions while I'm going through the pre-submitted ones, feel free to submit them there. I'm looking live, so any things you want us to recover or clarify, we can do that. All right, so off to our first question. Is the hiring someone for a staffing agency or a truck driving school safe? So I'll repeat that one more time because I think I made a flub. Is hiring someone from a staffing agency or a truck driving school safe?
Okay, that's a good question because we want to make sure, like I talked about, that successful candidate, and we want to say, well, if I hire from a staffing agency, that driver, a CDL holder, is technically an employee of the staffing agency. We can essentially cancel that contract at any time with that driver if he's not meeting up to that. So some of the burden is placed on the staffing agency, some of it is placed on you. I would say for a staffing agency, I would at minimum make sure you have that relationship with the staffing agency, that all the correct background and checks are being conducted correctly. As I stated earlier, I'm working in or was with an accident that occurred yesterday on a driver overturned a log truck, and he was actually banned from the clearinghouse on a previous drug alcohol conviction. So make sure you have that relationship with the staffing agency. If you hire them from a truck driving school, really look out and see how long that truck driving school is. Talk to the truck driving school and ask them, can your safety manager or fleet director, can he actually go out there and spend a day with those instructors and see the type of knowledge that they're giving and helping them with? You want to make sure that they're well prepared when they come to your fleet. That's a good question, though.
Awesome, awesome, great answer. Okay, for our next question, we have: can I put a new driver on probation for the first 90 days?
Yeah, good question. Remember, as a company, you can really, within HR and employment guidelines, if you want to put your driver on a 30, 60, 90-day probation period that says, you must, you're kind of under the scrutiny right now and you've got to do everything correctly. And it's kind of a period that the driver seemed really good in the very beginning, but then, he was coming in late, he was not doing pre-trips and everything. Can you kind of terminate that employment due to them not meeting the standards of the company within the 90-day probation? But yes, you can. Again, I would recommend that everybody make sure you're aware of your labor laws in whatever state that you're in and make sure that we're doing it correctly.
Awesome, awesome. All right, our last and final pre-submitted question we have for this episode is: how does a driver make up a class if he misses it due to being on vacation or a workman's comp?
Okay, good question. So we know how hard it is to get everybody in, and we have that Saturday morning class. We brought breakfast in. We give a good defensive driving class, but we had a couple guys out because it's summertime. They're on vacation. We're not going to make them come in from that. If they're on workman's comp, you can't make them come in. How do we do that? There's different options and different things you can look at for your fleet. What we like to do, I always like to conduct my classes in person, but there are sometimes we will record the class and I can actually push that out online or, something like that. Maybe have a little test to that. We push it out. They watch the hour-long class. They have a little test that they take at the end. So that way we can document and show that they retain the knowledge that we actually gave. So there's different ways. Make sure whoever is conducting training with you, work with them, ask them those type of questions. Hey, we had 5 guys out on vacation this month. Is there any way we can push that class out? And there's sometimes we could even possibly have another class where they could sit in. There's multiple options that you can do. At HB Next, we want everybody to get the training that is required. Good question, though.
All right. Well, listen, that does conclude our questions and answers section of the podcast episode today. Just as a reminder to anybody who is still listening and or watching live on YouTube, you're more than welcome to submit questions live to us during the episode of the podcast. We are more than welcome to answer any of them as they come up. I just want to make sure that we encourage everyone to, don't feel free and don't be keyboard shy. We're here to help you. That's what we're here for. Okay. Um, so, real fast, a few cleanup items to go through today. The recorded session and the future episodes will all be found on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and uploaded to YouTube. We do have an upcoming landing page for our podcast on our website. That'll happen at hpnext.com/podcast. It's not currently live, but please be on the lookout for that. And when that does drop live, that'll be a really nice home for y'all to come watch the drive every week. The live stream can only be found on YouTube channel, just so y'all are aware. It's at HP Next Corp. Our next episode is on the 5 steps of successfully onboarding telematics. This episode will happen August 14th at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So mark it on your calendars. Make sure you guys ring our bell for our notifications on our site, and of course follow our channel. If you found today's discussion helpful, share us and subscribe. Leave us a review. Join the conversation on social media at hpnext.com. The social medias that we have available are on screen at the moment and are at link. You could always use the hashtags TheDRIVE podcast and HBNext TheDRIVE to engage with us in conversations on X, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover in future episodes, we want you to feel free to reach out to us and submit those items. We want to hear from you guys about what future topics y'all want to use. Please submit those at thedrive@hbnext.com. That's the email address again. It's thedrive@hbnext.com. Everyone, until next time, stay safe and keep driving towards a better future. Have a wonderful day, everyone.